Welcome everybody. It's Cam D'Souza coming to you with another episode of Locker Talk. Here with my boy Jake, and today we're going to be talking about two of the greatest receivers in Patriots history, Wes Welker and Julian Edelman. For career stats, we're looking at Wes Welker, grand total of 175 games, 903 receptions, 9,924 yards, and 50 touchdowns. Edelman, we're looking at 137 games to this point, 620 catches, 6,822 yards, 36 touchdowns, 3 Super Bowls, 1 Super Bowl MVP. But jumping into Edelman versus Welker, we're going to break it down by 7 categories, and we'll rate which one we think is better. At the end, we'll have a collaboration of who me and Jake truly think is better. We'll get into some film. We'll go from there. But Jake, to start off, athleticism. Which one of these guys do you think is the most athletic?
Athletic, I got to go Edelman on this one. I think it shows just from being able to switch positions, going from quarterback in college to receiver in the NFL. Takes athleticism in itself. Obviously, you have to be athletic to be in the NFL and be a receiver.
But
I don't know. I don't have any proof behind it other than just a feel of when you watch the two different players and you watch them in comparison. You just get a feel that Edelman is the more athletic guy. I mean, whether it's when he's doing those trick plays with the throws or whatnot, or making highly contested catches or really tough catches, I got to lean with Edelman on that one.
Yeah, you notice a natural athlete, and which is what Edelman is. He's played DB in the NFL, which incredibly hard to do. True. You see him run by guys, and that's his MO, is his speed. And you see it when we'll get more into route running. You see in his route running, he utilizes that speed and that quickness to get by guys, and he's still pretty strong. I mean, he's always flexing the muscles and stuff, but pretty strong guy. Next, we're gonna go with hands. So the way I look at it, and a lot of people, it's kind of a toss-up between these two, Jake.
Yeah, I gotta agree. It's definitely a toss-up. It's I don't think either one of them have great hands. I wouldn't say either one of them is a lock to catch the ball every time it's thrown to them.
Yeah. Neither of them are really natural in it. Edelman, obviously, I felt like worked a little bit harder, and Welker was a body catcher. But I would lean towards Welker. There's just not these like easy drops, and I always think back to last year against the Chiefs. Edelman had like a regular bubble catch, just right there, and he didn't put him on him, and he dropped it, and it turned out being a pick six because he tipped it up. But I got to go with Welker on this one.
Yeah, and I think you have to factor in too is difficulty of the catch, because I mean, granted, both guys are really tough guys. I mean, to be a slot receiver in the NFL, you got to be a tough guy because you're going to get rocked over the middle. But it just seems that when it comes to getting crushed over the middle and still making the catch, in my mind at least, I think more of Welker. Not to say that Edelman can't do it, but I think more Welker, and I think I got to lean Welker on this one too.
Yeah,
in terms of when I think of Edelman, I think of drops more so than Welker.
Yeah, and the products on the field for Welker too. It doesn't happen that much with Edelman, and you saw like the tough catch. Like I think back to like the Super Bowl when he took that huge hit from Cans Chancellor coming across the middle. But Welker, it was just game in and game out, tough catches over the middle. So pretty similar on that one. Next one, this one's easy. Is reliability / like injury.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Welker's the most reliable.
And for sure. I mean, later on in his career, he had more of the injuries, but if we're talking strictly Patriots years, you have to lean towards Welker. It's just the proof's in the pudding. You know what I mean? He very rarely missed games. He had the torn ACL, but that happens.
Yeah, same thing happened to Edelman too.
Right. So I think it's like you said, it's pretty straightforward. Just look at the stats on that one. You'll see that in terms of being on the field, Welker edges him.
Yeah, and like you said, for the Patriots years, Welker only missed 3 games the 5 years he was with the Patriots. Where you look at Edelman from the years he's starting from 2013 on, obviously this season he missed pretty much the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
He missed 7 games in the 2015 season, and then a few games here and there from the other season. So,
Right.
easy one right there. Clutch, another easy one. Julian Edelman, hands down. And I think as far as like with the debate with these guys, this is the reason why Edelman's in this debate is because of how clutch he is and all the moments he brought to the Patriots. Because when you think of Julian Edelman, you think of the double pass in the Baltimore Ravens game, the clutch catches in the Seattle Super Bowl, the crazy catch in the Atlanta Super Bowl, and then obviously him dominating the Rams and being our really only offensive weapon in that game.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think saying that when you think of Edelman, it is the first thing that comes to mind is clutch. And I think the first thing that comes to mind with Welker more so is stats in terms of, you mean just receptions. When you think of Edelman, Welker, you think of 120 catches a year. I mean, just somebody that Brady fed the ball to continuously and continuously. And I mean, he did that with Edelman, but more so with Welker. I mean, you just see Welker get those bunches of catches. I mean, 3-4 catches in a row right over the middle, same play, one after another. And I think it's a really good point that Edelman would not even be in this conversation if it weren't for what he does in the playoffs. And he's one of the definitions of clutch. I mean, when times get tough, it's rising to the occasion and making the plays that need to be made to win the game. And I think that's where Edelman, in very few categories, edges Welker.
Yep, exactly. And that 2018 run that he had was probably the most historic runs by a receiver. I mean, it's paralleling like the Larry Fitzgerald run that they had in 2009 when they went to the Super Bowl.
Right, and when do you see receivers win Super Bowl MVP? I mean, I know Deion Branch, but it's not a usual occurrence in the Super Bowl. I mean, it's usually quarterbacks, obviously.
You're in a very exclusive club if you do that.
Right.
And then this one is going to be interesting. So one-on-one, who do you think was the tougher to cover? I mean, obviously we're not cornerbacks. We never played against these guys, but just strictly from a fan standpoint, who do you think?
See, I break it to me earlier on. If Edelman, let's say Edelman's first 5 years of being a real receiver, I don't mean like his first 2 or 3 years when he wasn't really on the field. Like just take his chunk of years that he was on the field. I think I have to go with Edelman on this one just because of his subtlety when it comes to breaking out of routes. And what I'm saying is that when you watch him, a lot of the times, as long as the guy's not pressed on him, he'll do like that Devontae Adams hop step where he's kind of waiting to see how the defender reacts. And then he shakes and makes his move. And then I think and I don't even think Edelman is the fastest guy. You mean speed-wise? I think he's very quick. I think both guys are quick, obviously. But I think Edelman has a good feel of where the defender is around him. And it's a tougher cover because of his quickness.
Yeah. And I completely get where you're coming from, especially that we gave him the athleticism category on this. But as far as one-on-one, I think Welker, just purely based off his route running, he just knows how to set guys up. And you just saw it, and he was pretty much unstoppable with the Patriots running the option route with him and Brady just on the same page. They just basically like, you can go either out, you can go in, or you can fake it like you're going in, going back out. And just him being able to set someone up, know where he's going to go, and then break out and just do it. Like you said, there's plays where you just keep feeding Welker because he's just open. He's just always open. So I think as far as if you're looking one-on-ones, I would lean towards Welker.
Don't you feel, though, that Welker's route tree might have been a little more easier than Edelman's in terms of, I feel like Edelman's more of a deeper over the middle threat, and I'm not saying like a seam route or anything like that, but I'm just saying
crossers,
like the medium posts and stuff like that. I feel like that's more of Edelman's game, whereas Welker was a couple feet off the line of scrimmage, feeding the ball, get that 6 to 8 yards, and keep it moving. Whereas I feel Edelman does that, but he also goes over the deep middle more often than Welker did.
Where, like, it's And that's a good point, Jake, because you're looking at two different receivers, what they based off their route tree, where Edelman is basing a lot of this off his crossers, and then he will break off the crosses when he'll run like a deep out, and he tries to make the thing similar. They motion him in so he can run these crosses all the time and his pick and choose. And a lot of his route tree is based off that, where Welker, it's like you said, just come up. Am I going to break this way? I'm going to break this way. I'm going to stop and kind of go from there. But I mean, for me, like even – and I would point out to the 2012 season where you saw Welker start to do other things outside of just let me come here, let me come there, because you're not working with Randy Moss at that point. You got to run these seams and make some of these big plays, which I felt like you saw with Welker. I mean, just for me, like my perspective, you see Welker so many times in a one-on-one situation, you saw him win. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason why I think to that. I feel like with Edelman, there's times where you saw the offense be really stagnant when they're playing man-to-man across the board against the Patriots in these recent years. And you're like, well, Edelman needs to get open or somebody needs to get open, but you're hoping for Edelman. But that's my opinion.
That's fair. And I think a lot of it, and I think it has to factor into one of the other categories, what we covered already was durability in terms of, with Edelman taking – all those hits and having all those injuries, and not to mention, he's 35 now, that I would say over the last 2 or 3 years, not that he's not effective, but that he is slowing down a little bit just in terms of age and injury history. It just, it happens. So yeah. I think that gets factored in too.
Without a doubt. And then you actually make a nice segue into the next one, which is YAC, yards after catch. Great stat. Love this stat. And with the point of like, Welker's route tree is very short and then try to make a play after that, which caused for Welker to have an absurd number of yards after catch, which you saw. There was like an article posted like back in 2012. I remember like 50% of Welker's yards were yards after catch, because he's running these short routes.
Well, yeah, a lot of his receptions come a couple yards after the line of scrimmage.
Exactly. So I think this is a little bit skewed because the way Welker ran routes, he was in a position to where his yards after catch were just getting inflated.
Yeah, well, he has a 20-yard reception. It's like 15 yards after catch because the catch comes at 5 yards after the snap.
You just got to beat one guy. But I think as far as being able to create after the catch, I think Edelman wins in this. Just the way he's able to break tackles and the way he's able to use his athleticism, be around guys and break ankles. Welker is more of like a straight line guy, like let me put my shoulder down into you and find a crease.
I agree with that in terms of long distance running. So like he was like Edelman's the better punt returner and kick returner and whatnot, but I think in short area yardage I'd have to lean towards Welker just because I feel he was more shifty in making his way across the middle, even with the ball in his hands. I think Edelman's the faster player, so I think that makes him more effective when it comes to making a long play. But I think just in close yardage with a lot of people around, I liked what Welker was able to do in terms of shifting around and finding the hole in the defense after catching the ball.
Okay, so but you feel like even still, like if you gave them like both in the same opportunity, you felt like, say they both run a hitch, same exact coverage, you want one of them to make a play, you feel like Welker's going to get more yards after the catch than what Edelman would?
I think so, because I think he's going to be able to get that first guy off of him. To give you a straight answer, I'd say yes, Welker. But it's tough because I know Edelman is a great yards after catch guy. But I think Welker was just able to make that first guy miss, whereas Edelman was more effective down the field, having space. I think Welker was better in short yardage and being able to make those couple guys miss right away.
That's fair. Completely fair. And you referenced the next one. You're segueing these ones a lot, Jake. I love it. Is punt return. I think this one's pretty obvious. Welker had 0 touchdowns as far as punt return with the Patriots, and Edelman has 4, and we've seen it. He's made so many plays in the punt game, especially when he was younger, that just swayed games.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Welker was more put back there just to have a guy that can catch the ball. Kind of just if you get a couple yards, great.
I got it.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, definitely Edelman. And I think that ties back into what I was saying in terms of making the long play. Edelman was more effective just because I think he's better in open field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's pretty obvious. Like you said, you got to go towards Edelman on that one.
Fair, without a doubt. And then to put some film to what we're saying, so going back to when we're talking about durability and the amount of hits, and I think this is where it really sets Welker apart because the amount of hits like he's taken in these plays, like a hit like that across the middle doesn't really happen that often. And then even a hit like this makes another tough catch. That doesn't happen. That's a flag. And then this is all the same game. Here's another one. Take another shot in the back.
Yep.
That doesn't happen game in, game out. And to take that beating on a consistent basis and still play in the same games is remarkable.
Yeah, like I think you said a good thing with that. Those are flags, and it's crazy because this is, I mean, what's that? 10 years ago, 2010, 2009, around there.
If that, yeah.
It's pretty crazy how the game's changed just in terms of that. I mean, it's obviously to protect players more, but both are tough guys. But Edelman, you got to remember too, is smaller. Welker is smaller than Edelman. I mean, only by a couple inches, but just in stature too. And you look at them on the field, and Welker just he take those punches. And I remember watching the games. He take those punches. Everybody would be like, "Oh my god!" And he just get his way up and walk back to the huddle.
Yeah, and then go catch another pass in the very next play.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have that Ryan Clark hit. That was probably one of the most vicious hits I've ever seen, outside of the James Harrison one on, I think it was like number 11 for the Browns. Got completely annihilated.
Yeah.
I miss those plays. But when we're talking about Kiak, obviously both are great in this department, but there's a different way in which they go about it. Because we got Welker on the left side, we got Julian Edelman on the right side. And this is just a quick little bubble, same exact play. It looks exactly the same. It's so funny picking up these plays. But if we watch Welker on the left side first, he's just straight up, takes a hit from a linebacker and just tries to move north and south. Where we're looking at Edelman, we got to go back a little bit. And you see him get a little bit more creative and be a little shifty, shake that off, and then he goes underneath and he picks up 19 on 2nd and 20. So
I think that's fair. In terms of this one too, I don't know if you mean obviously they're very similar plays, but it looks like Edelman had a little bit more blocking on that one in terms of the lineman getting out there.
But yeah, and then go into like some of the similarities for them too. This both deep crossers. This is Edelman's MO. I had to really dig to find this one for Welker. You see a nice deep crosser, and we see Welker right on the left side, right in front of Gronk, and you see him just take a few short, subtle steps, break inside, and then this is where he just gets vertical and wins right there, winning on the line of scrimmage. And I think that's where I'd give him the edge in route running, where he sets this guy up to really kind of like, where's he going to go? And then he just explodes. And you see him use his body and be in the right position instead of getting too deep and potentially having him on him, and that'd be a pick and a whole different situation, but using his body. And this is where I say for like Edelman, he's more athletic, so he doesn't need to do as much. So the Patriots set him up in a great position, use the natural rub of this inside receiver to just give him a clear route, and he just route runs this guy.
Yeah, run by him, whereas Welker is more setting him up himself and sticking the foot in the ground and then exploding from there.
Exactly. And then I put this one just because it looks pretty much the exact same for me as far as route tree. These routes are very similar. You see the inside, the same stem with the outside break, and then they both just square this off, get outside, and then make a play. Welker with his straight line stuff. Edelman on this right side gets creative and spins off a tackler, shifts this guy, and makes it fancy and dives in. And this one is another one for like route tree, where you see Welker, they have a little bit more time on this left side as opposed to with Edelman on the right. But you see Welker again, set this guy up a little bit, break inside, and then you see him right here, just put his foot in the ground. And like I said, with route running, you want to be in the right spot. So it's huge that he doesn't veer upfield where he's only really working with like 2 yards difference, and he really squares this off.
I think it's a good indication of the feel he had for the game too. Where if you started here watching Welker on the left,
and he knows where this guy is.
Yeah, and you pause it at the top when he makes his break. He knows where the guy is right there. I mean, he knows that he hasn't beat him. I don't remember what's going on with the play. I don't remember if Brady's breaking out of the pocket or if there's some pressure, but it looks like it's more of a broken play. And you can just see Welker's feel for the game is that I don't have the guy beat. I'm going to stick my foot in the ground. I'm going to go the opposite way, and I'm going to make the play. And that's exactly what he does.
Mm-hmm. And you see for like Edelman over here, same release inside. He's playing more off coverage, and then you see him get a little physical and then just use his speed.
I think that's where Edelman progressed to throughout his career was he runs right into Talib, and that's a good way to set up the defender because he doesn't know where you're going because you're running right at him. And what happens is he runs right into him, and then he breaks off for his route.
Yeah, and that just plays into his strength where he's more athletic than a lot of these cornerbacks, and he uses this because once he's there, look how much more separation he gets when he can turn on to that fifth gear.
Right.
And then this next one, these are just like my favorite plays from each one of them. This Welker play, he's just toying with this guy. This is like the game's like out of reach at this point, and Welker's just messing around, playing outside, which he never does. Does a quick little spin, and great catch at the end. I can't tell you how many times I've tried this during flag football. And just make the play.
I think that's a good point too. What you said is that what he never does being outside. I think Edelman has more of the capabilities of being an outside receiver. I mean, both are primarily the slot guy, obviously, but I think Edelman with his athleticism had more of a skill set to play the outside in terms of more regularly than Welker did.
Yeah, and you've seen Edelman have a little bit more success out there than what Welker did. And this play, this is just, like I said, yards after catch for Julian Edelman just being great. Have a nice little natural rub over here to get him on the wheel. Easy throw and catch, and then this is just all Edelman.
There's the yak.
It's a little tight at the end, but gotta love to see these things.
And I think what's a good point to make too with being a slot receiver in the NFL is you have to be tapped in some way. You know what I mean? You have to have some bolts loose because you're gonna get crushed. You're gonna take those big hits. I mean, big hits happen all over the place, but especially going over the middle, and you're getting hit by 6'2", 250 linebackers. I mean, that's a big hit where you're gonna take, and I think both of them do a good job of knowing that and knowing that it's more important to make the catch and the hit. It's gonna hurt, but you're just gonna have to move on and make the plays for your team.
Yeah, and especially when you're only like 5'10", 5'11",
right?
Maybe close to a 200 bills.
Mm-hmm.
You're more like 195, 190, depending on who you are. And also with that, you're not paying attention to the hit, which you can't brace, which hurts even more. It's because you're looking at the quarterback, you're seeing the ball in, and then all of a sudden you get smacked. Those are the ones that hurt. It's not like a running back where you're coming in and you're like, I see this linebacker, let me put my shoulder down. It's more those blindsides hit. It's a tough job to do. And I think as far as when all said and done, Welker was the better slot receiver. And obviously that is shown in his numbers, just what he did over that short span of time. And to throw some more stats out there, Welker had 2 years with 120 catches. And he is tied for most times to do that with Mike Thomas, AB, and Chris Carter. Good company to be in.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like I said earlier, it's just when you think of Welker, you think of somebody that just feasted on receptions. It was just it's just what he did. It was unusual for him not to have 100 yards in a year. 100 receptions in a year. Yeah. So yeah, I think in terms of just being the perfect slot guy, you have to go with Welker. Obviously, durability factors in. I think it'd be more of a case if Edelman was able to stay on the field more, because I think his stats would be obviously inflated the more he was on the field, and then it just comes down to it took Edelman a little longer to figure out the position. He went from quarterback to receiver in a very complicated Patriots offense, which I think factors into both of those guys in a positive way because it's not an easy route tree that they're running. It means a lot of options, and you have to have great chemistry with the quarterback, and they both developed that, and they both became really effective receivers.
Yeah, and the other reason why I give this nod to Welker is because he was the first guy to really do this and make a living doing this. I mean, you had Brandon Stokely, but it wasn't necessarily to the effect of what Welker was doing with all these short intermediate routes. Brandon Stokely would still run those benders and those seams, things like that. But
Right.
and they really changed the game with Welker forcing teams to play in nickel, because if you're playing base against three receivers and Welker's in the slot, that's an easy out, easy option for the offense. So you really saw things to progress and the game to change when Welker was doing this.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think he really helped change the position in terms of slot guys, and um, and yeah, I mean, it just he ironically he never won a Super Bowl with the Patriots, no matter how good he was and how good the teams were. But um, yeah, he changed the position, especially for the Patriots, something they could rely on, and when they really needed a play, and it shows with both of them because it's still factored in years after Welker was gone with Edelman. When they need that play, they know they have that guy in the middle that can get open.
Exactly. Well, hope everyone liked it. If you did, hit the subscribe button. We need the help, Jake, right? We need the help.
Yes, subscribe.
Twice. Subscribe for you and subscribe for your friend.
Yes.
Catch you next time.